So, another stirring town hall event organised by Arise News and its partners, the second instalment in the series, featuring the presidential candidates from 4 political parties. They include Prince Adewale Adebayo of the Social Democratic Party, Omoyele Sowore of the African Action Congress, Professor Peter Umeadi of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, and Yabagi Sani of the Action Democratic Party. The focus was on security and the economy, the scope of the problems in those 2 key areas, and how the candidates hope to tackle them if elected. Spliced in were questions from a panel of experts, as well as comments and more questions from the audience. So how did it all come together? How much faith can we put in their pledges? How can we be sure that they'll follow through once the curtain falls on the elections?
The security problems in Nigeria into 3. One is the usual enforcement, physical security. The second aspect of it is collection of intelligence, analysis of intelligence, and execution of intelligence. But you can only collect intelligence if you have intelligent people running intelligence organizations.
With rule of law. And that means that nobody will be above the law. And that will mean that the security agencies will work in a manner that they will share information, they will gather intelligence, they will process it in the manner that it's supposed to process, and it will be applied in order to ensure that when there's an incident, you are able to act effectively. What is happening to us in this country is that, one, there's government, but hardly can you see evidence of governance. And if you do not have issues dealt with dispatch, definitely what you find is a anarchy in the country.
That he has gotten in a vote, that he has won. If I'm president, I'm going to steep myself into the work, and I'm going to get those reports directly, and I'm going to find out what is going there on a second-to-second basis. That is very important. And that's why I say it's about the layout, it's about the discipline, it's about the structure of security that we have in the country, but most importantly, it's about the leadership.
So the problem in the country is this, and I'm going to fix it as follows. 1, you have to ensure that you do not bring political activist supporters into the security architecture. Right now, that's where most money goes, and that's why they bring all kinds of incompetent. People go fired for incompetence in their career, get brought back to come and manage this money. And instead of facing the issue of insecurity and collaborating with one another, what they do is that they fight one another for budget.
Well, to help us assess what transpired and to drill down to see if the grand plans and promises made by the candidates are really feasible, I'm joined now in the studio by the public affairs commentator, Arise News analyst and head of mass communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, and by the policy strategist, Arise News analyst and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, Waziri Adio, both of whom attended that Arise town hall event. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Let me come to you, Waziri. A pretty engaging discussion, if you ask me. A lot of vibrant contributions, very good ideas, very impressive outing. How do you rate the second Town Hall Arise event?
I think it's quite impressive, and I think I will start with saying that kudos to Arise and its partners for going ahead with this. Ordinarily, this will have ended with the top tier, the first 4. And if you didn't have this, we would have had the opportunity of listening to these guys, And I think they gave a good account of themselves. By and large, there are some rough edges, but by and large, they gave good account of themselves because they also had the platform. And I think it's very important, especially the media, to make sure that we give everybody equal chance of being heard. Why is that important? It's not just about choosing the leaders. It's also an opportunity to harvest the best ideas out there. So it might be the guy that will come last that will have the best ideas.
Absolutely.
And that will benefit society, So, and I think this went better than than the first time. Maybe it's also because it's happening for the first time. The last thing I want to say about this is that the idea of a town hall actually is best suited for, discussing ideas as opposed to a debate. A debate is usually within the context of, I want to have one up against you. It's usually antagonistic. People are.
Well, it seemed more like that in the first one, didn't it?
Yeah, to some extent in this one too, but at least, this one was more, more deliberative, was more, discussive, and I think it's
right.
Though I wish they had more time, and that some of these ideas they're able to actually drill down and get to the how rather than just staying on the surface.
But to be honest,
happened.
I like the fact that they kept it nice and tight, because there's always the risk that people will waffle on once you give them more time. You see what I mean? They start to waffle, and whereas if they're very tight, they stay focused on what the subject matter is. Do you think, Professor, that this level of exposure may give a greater range of choices to the voters, as Waziri was suggesting, and show them the amount of talent that's out there that's not necessarily one of the big four front runners?
Yeah, but I think it's going to give us a higher level of understanding of who the candidates are. And I think, like Waziri said, they demonstrated that they are quite a brilliant lot. They were very penetrating in their analysis, very confident, and very exhaustive as well. They left no one in doubt about their understanding of the Nigerian condition and the solutions they can provide to the myriad of problems that we are having. So from the first to the last of them, they were very, very good. Yes, it could give us an further understanding of the stuff they are made of, but I think it's not also enough. These exercises are excellent, very good in terms of ideation, in terms of robust intellection. But of course, it's going to be largely limited, to helping the elites, appreciate the substance embedded in these candidates. Beyond the elites, I doubt if some other section of the populace will actually appreciate them. Because if you look at their level, the level of enlightenment in this country is still very, very marginal. The level of education is still very, very marginal. But to the extent that's going to help the elites, because if you look at the possibility of two-step influence or two-step rendition of thoughts of mobilization, whereby the elites can internalize, appreciate them, and be able to inform the non-elites, on who to vote for, give them direction. It can be helpful in that regard, because some of these candidates were practically unknown to us until yesterday. You probably want to undermine them until you had them yesterday. Particularly Showore, for instance, you only see much of activism in him, but you won't know that he has this kind of substance embedded in him. But it was an opportunity to showcase himself, and of course, he never left anyone in doubt, just
Absolutely.
like the other candidates, as the case could be.
But in that case, now that you've mentioned a particular candidate, I mean, in terms of their individual performances, Waziri, Omoyole Showore, as Prof was saying, Prince Adebayo, seem to have come, I wouldn't say better prepared, but quite well prepared. I mean, and certainly came across to people on social media, if you look at the way people have been assessing it, as arguably being on the winning side of the discussion. Is that how you saw it?
Well, I wouldn't want to go through that part. I don't use social media, presence and popularity.
But it's a kind of person on the street. The difference
not
between
necessarily.
person on the street and what we do now.
Social media is like an echo chamber. There's a particular demographics that speaks to, and there are some people who are very popular on social media. So I'm not discounting that some people did well or didn't do well, but I'm just saying, that some people they have constituency on social media. So if their constituencies or their supporters, happen to be rating them well, that doesn't mean that the other people didn't do well. The way I look at it is that generally all of them did quite well in different ways. Showore, combative as ever,
but also backing it up with a lot of facts.
Depends on what you're looking for. Depends on what you're looking for. I don't want to personalize this, but the point I'm trying to make is that what people are looking for different things. For me, I'm looking beyond, because when you are doing this kind of stuff, you are trying to, one, go through different levels. The first one is to identify the problem. The second one is to show that you have a nuanced understanding of the drivers or the issues of the problem that you have identified. The third one, which is actually the key, is that you have solutions that are implementable, that are original. I don't think most of them, in as much as you have different bits and pieces where you can say this person is strong here, this person is strong there, most people did not get to the third level for me in terms of practical ideas.
I mean, all the participants.
Yeah, most of them.
Right.
But in terms of the first level, in terms of identify the issues, right? Identify what the problem is, identify what the issues are. Yes, but in terms of practical ideas, and I'll give you an example. We have a problem with debt. We have a problem with revenue.
Yes.
So we have a problem.
And they were not very specific in dealing with that. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So it's not just enough to say, we have 16 trillion hanging somewhere. You have a lot of that. If people just play into the gallery, or this amount. What are you going to do about debt? What are you going to do to raise revenue? Not just that we need to do better in terms of revenue. What exactly? Yeah. That is what I want to hear.
But you're an intellectual, if you don't mind my saying so. So is the prof sitting there. But what I'm wondering, Prof, is the Joe blogs on the street that you talked about earlier, are they that into how you're going to sort of work out what you're going to do about this, or is the optics just as important? If Prince Adebayo is coming across as quite sort of bullish and take charge, he's got that take charge ability thing, or Moyele Shore, or Sani, or Yomadi, or whatever. You see what I mean? Does that count very much for people who are not intellectuals, or you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand it, Charles. For me, I still doubt really if it's going to be of very serious impact on the voters' decision. Many people have probably already made up their mind on who to vote for, and of course, there's no amount of town hall, no amount of debate will sway them. But this is not to say that those events, those exercises are not important. They are important because, ideation process often leads to action. We're able to broaden the scope of the understanding, think about, imagine opportunities for execution and implementation, which is often our bane. But largely also, if you look at all the candidates, I think when somebody is talking, when somebody is mouthing things, you probably can put them into two categories, the things they say. First, in terms of the general context, or in terms of the specifics. I imagine that our democracy or our debaters or our contestants are gradually moving away from the general to the specifics. Yes, they may not be there yet, but they made efforts yesterday to harp on the specifics, identifying some key issues, bedeviling us and imagining solutions to them, even though they were not exhaustive. And I heard one of them explain that you cannot really be arithmetic with respect to tactics and strategies that you're going to deploy, when you are not there yet, because there are still X factors, there are still variables that you probably cannot place your hand on, and until you get there before you can be exact, and that's why they are also saying that as much as they can be as close as possible, from their explanations, then you can design, the direction in which they want to go, or their abilities and capabilities in those contests. But overall, and I think we have come to that agreement that it didn't all do badly, even though there's still room for improvement, and that room is one of further consultations, further researches, so that they would not continue to parrot themselves, or rather repeat themselves and become sort of boring, because elections is still far away, and there are still more appearances that they're going to have in the media, in town halls, and in other spaces of expression.
Okay, and Waziri, you run a think tank, so you keep a much closer eye on these things than maybe some of us generalist journalists, you see what I mean? Is it coming across to you at this level as a more issue-based campaign, or do they tend to behave themselves when they are brought together in this way, in this sort of town hall thing, but take the gloves off when they are out in the sort of the wider world, and then start taking pot shots at each other rather than focusing on the issues?
Well, I think the set that we had yesterday was generally better behaved than the one the previous week. You saw how the one for the previous week went. But I think maybe that is also a function of, the competition is stiffer at that level, and they think that the race is actually between them at that level. But there's something that you said and he said I want to kind of respectfully
disagree with.
Yes.
We won't allow you to.
The first thing is that I don't think we should this bifurcation that we're trying to do between the elite and the common people. I think it's artificial. The dichotomy rather. Everybody, Nigerians, at this place where we're looking for solutions. Yeah. Right. And it's not just enough for somebody to say, I'm going to do this. People want to be reassured that you actually what you are telling them.
No, we understand that. We're just saying that there are also other things that people take into consideration. But you're right. I mean, everybody wants the naira. Yeah. They know the naira is priced, a heck of a lot less than the dollar, and they want it to.
So people want practical solutions. Beyond that, also, I think this point we shouldn't let these people off. Yes, they came out, they were impressive, and of course, maybe we wouldn't have had the opportunity to listen to them. But for God's sake, they are not competing to the secondary school prefects. They are competing to occupy the highest office in the country. So we should hold them to higher standards.
Yeah. I agree.
Right? And we shouldn't let them off, because they gave us some sound bites. If you identify the problem, take a leap from that and give us the solution. You've identified that, there's intelligence gathering or sharing is a problem. What exactly are you going to do? Are you going to appoint an intelligencer? Are you going to have a framework for sharing information? We have to take that leap. Yeah. We shouldn't just stay with analysis. They are not public commentators. They are not public affairs commentators. They are not analysts. You are applying for the biggest job in the land.
Yes, absolutely.
And you must take yourself seriously and take the rest of us seriously.
I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of training in how to deliver things very succinctly. Yeah. Because if they had 3 minutes and sometimes 2 minutes, and that's a very tight space within which to communicate what you want. And if you're not a very good sort of public speaker, and it becomes a problem. We've got about 1.5 minutes or so, Prof. A lot of concern in this election about unity in what appears to be a very polarized country. Ethnic divisions highlighted by the ethnicities of the main candidates, and the principals talked about how they would deal with that tense and emotional issue, didn't they? What was your sense of how they dealt with it?
But I think they tried, they tried, because it is very important for a candidate, to be plural in his thoughts, and to look at planetary Nigeria, not a cocoon, really. And most of them spoke, they spoke against that background, especially when the question around unity was also asked. They were very expressive in this regard, I don't think they could have done any more than they did in terms of talking about how they will bring about integration and inclusion. It's a work in progress. And of course, the question of indissolubility, the unity of Nigeria, is a question that is almost cast in stone. And any candidate, any politician coming to talk away from that is actually undoing himself. So it's an effort that is continuing, and of course, there's probably no going back.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, Waziri Adio, and of course, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Thank you very much indeed, and great performance, by the way. You were asking questions,
you too,
and you were on television. I could see you at that event.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.